their profiles, and their interest level. See how that map kind of connects now? That's your job. So that's how you have to look at the children in your classroom. Some are flying, some are crawling by bus. I don't want to go by bus, but I got to help these babies get to Magic Kingdom. And that's how you, every time you look at those students in the classroom, you don't have to put a bus on them and a bicycle, but that's my visual to help you understand our process in working with our children. And you've got to figure out their mode of transportation and how am I going to adapt my instruction to help them get there.
I understand that, but with the bicycle, it's like you say we're all going to meet there next week, and this is like a good analogy.
The goal is for them to, let's think of content. Mm-hmm. The goal is for them to learn their ABCs. Mm-hmm. They might not get there as fast as that group, okay, but eventually they're going to get there. Okay. And my job is to adapt the instruction so that they can get there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, we're going to look at an adaptive way of doing things. These are the 5 steps to a differentiated classroom. So you have a piece of paper that's already folded for you that looks like this. And you're going to, and there are rulers. Because you're teachers, I know you already got your pencils. Now, did somebody open my bubble gum on the table?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. That bubble gum is a part of my prom, and you are not to chew the bubble gum. Yeah, that is coming. Okay? So you're going to have to run to the store and get me some Bubblicious strawberry bubble gum. All right? Well, I like that you thought that was the reason, but that's so you can't chew a piece when it's time to do the next project. All right, so
the others didn't speak up.
So what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of paper. Now I'm not going to measure mine, but I'm just going to show you what you're eventually going to do. You're going to take your flats, but I want you to measure. I just don't feel like measuring because I want yours to be perfect. But when you finish, you're going to have 5 flats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can measure it. You can do like I did, but I prefer if you kind of look at, because your education students, and I know your math skills are tight, and yours will be even, and you will cut on an even line. All right, for those students that have already done that, and at the bottom, right here, you are going to write the word differentiated instruction in your very best handwriting. All right, so it should look like this when you finish. And then for number 1, as you're going to write create a climate for learning here. You're going to write know your students, assess your students, develop a repertoire of instructional strategies, and create a curriculum approaches for facilitating differentiated instruction. You can come up with something shorter if you want to put on each box, but each box you should have something there. You can just put a letter, it doesn't matter. Yes, they're also on your handout. So in your handout, it'll have on the very first page, it says steps to a differentiated classroom. And you'll see create a climate, exactly what I just said, and you can put those right there. You flip over to the first page at the bottom. And remember, your PowerPoint is not going to look like, because I didn't give you the PowerPoint, you have just the narrative part of it, just some bullets, but it's aligned with my PowerPoint. You need another magic marker? You have enough magic marker? You still cutting? Oh, I see some straight lines. I see some fancy ones that I'd like to share later. And there are a variety of ways. With my student teachers, I have used the same kind of format, but it's just a little different. But I don't show you that to you because since I have to have most of you later, I actually like to show more than one, but not at the same time. But those of you who have finished, there are a variety of ways that you can do this same strategy. And one is called a flip and fold as you're going. And you can actually take staggered paper. If you don't want to do it that format, you flip it. You can put the days of the week, you staple it, and it's the same concept. All right? But I'll show you that later, not today. All right, anybody done? Wants to show theirs off? Can I see yours? All right, this is what it should look like at the end. All right? That's what it should look like. And there's some more paper in case you made a mistake and you weren't following my instructions. Just you get another piece of paper. It's okay. They're already folded for you. But this is what it would look like when you're done. So I'm going to move on, okay? You don't have to be fancy, but that's very good. All right. In a classroom, if I'm teaching a concept, you want to find a way that students can visualize what it is that you're doing. Most of the time, many times we use bubble maps, and the students can actually do their own type of graphic organizers. But when young people have an opportunity to create and make things like this and the flip and fold that I was showing you, I didn't actually state it, but it gives them a quick and dirty way of knowing what you're talking about. So if I have 5 things that I want my students to know by the end of class, then these are the 5, everything fits right on here that I need for them to know. And it's a study tool, so let's say they're too cool and they're not taking their books home. You don't want to take your book home, baby? All right, fold it up, stick it in your back pocket, take it on home. You can study that sheet of paper. So even if they don't have, and you know, in many of our elementary classrooms, they can't take the books home. So they don't even have books. So in this county. So this is a quick and dirty way. So the first thing we're going to look at is create a climate for learning. And each one, as I'm going through each one, it's numbered on the PowerPoint. It's numbered in your handout. So when I'm talking about create a climate for learning, I want you to jot some things down under create a climate for learning. And as I'm talking, particularly for my student teachers and the preclinical, I want you to think about your own content. Okay, clouds? I heard you talk about clouds earlier. See how you could use that? Okay. And figure out what your content might be for another subject, because I'm going to come back to that later. So our first thing we're going to do is create, in a differentiated classroom, we have to create a collaborative climate for learning. Well, how do we do that? We have to, first of all, believe that all students can learn and be successful. If you don't believe that, these babies are not going to be successful. They can tell when you don't believe in them and when you don't care about them. You have to develop authentic and appropriate, I must say appropriate these days, relationships with students. And there's a body of literature that says that when we develop these relationships, students do better in school. So you've got to figure out ways to find out what students' interests are. Smile. Don't think about that old statement that teachers used to tell you, don't smile till Christmas. It's all right to smile. Smiling makes students realize, now, it doesn't mean that you're laughing at them or that you're being silly. It just means that you're human, you have a sense of humor, and you're smiling. There's nothing wrong with that. Notes of appreciation, eating lunch with students. I used to have a principal who used to stop by the classroom and when she, just 5 minutes, just run in and see you and say, great lesson, you're doing a great job. So even at this level, we like praise. So you can imagine students every now and then saying something kind. In my son's lunchbox, every few weeks, I write him a little note saying, have a great day, I love you, I hope everything's going well. And he told me he keeps those notes. And so I'm going to see when I'm on my deathbed if he still has them. I don't know. No time soon, of course. But it doesn't matter, our age. If I was, after you do a presentation in class and you sit down, the next group comes up, and I passed you a little sheet that said, wow, great job, and moved on, how would you feel? Wonderful. You just had a presentation last night, and I could have done that. I didn't do it, but it was good. I told you that it was great. All right? Create tasks that are challenging but not overwhelming. Come up with classroom agreements. These are examples of how you create this climate. Children need to believe. If I tell you I have a passion for teaching, I love to teach, should my words, should my rhetoric, should I be able to back that thing up? All right, what's the backup? How am I backing that up? My actions. So children know action. So if you are all this passionate and you say it, you tell us, I believe all students can learn, well, it ought to look that way in the classroom. That's why you're differentiating instruction, because you believe all these babies can learn, and you're coming up with alternative ways to help them to be successful. And remember, you're meeting the needs from your very lowest to your very highest, so you have to have challenging but not overwhelming assignments or activities. You have to create interest surveys. It's interest inventories. We're on a budget with paper, even though the Teach Center was so gracious to make copies. I didn't necessarily want to have a copy because I want you to think about, you're going to have to create the things I'm talking about. You're going to have to create some things later. And I don't want you to use my model as what you do. So I want you to think outside the box. But I am going to leave one on each table so you can kind of see what it looks like. But with your students in creating this climate, you want to find, remember in the beginning I said based on students' interests? Well, you got to find out what those interests are. So you might do an interest inventory. You might do a reinforcement survey, which I just put on those on your table. And some of the things might be, if I had, and you just find out these things and then you build these things in your classroom. If I had 10 minutes of free time, I would most like to, and then whatever those things are, you might build into free time in the classroom. You don't know what they like. I can make an assumption of what some little 10-year-olds like, but I need to find out from the babies what they like. My favorite activity that I wish we could do more often in class is, can you imagine building those things into your classroom, what it is that the kids like? Something I really want is, now you might not be able to get that, but when you're talking to parents or something, you might be able to build that in. Their favorite hobbies. The best thing my teacher can say to me is, so find out from the students what it is that they like and build that in. The second thing, so what do you have under block 1, boys and girls?
We have created a climate for learning.
All right, yes, and then on that, inside that box you have what? Okay, student, all right, well good. What am I doing? I'm assessing. Do we assess just after we finished our work? No. No, we have to assess before, which we already did. Let's look at our assessment tool. The only tool I've taught you right now, and pick that up. What's the tool that we've already talked about that's on your table? All right, so hold them up, because I'm going to stop and ask some questions. Asking all them questions. All right, hold it up. Do you know the first stage in differentiated instruction? Hold up your card. Do you think, you have no, so we need to work. Oh, okay. Could you actually go in and create a climate for learning? If you were going into your classroom tomorrow, could you do this? All right, so what did I learn from my quick and dirty assessment? That you've accomplished it, and can I go on?
Yes.
Yes. So now, know your students. So in block 2, you need to write, know your students. Now you've seen this 10,000 times in every education class you take here at Winston-Salem State University. Look at Dr. Vargas, thank you. On this little sign it said great lesson anyway. So we've seen this in every education class about Garner's multiple intelligences. But now we really need to apply it. So look in your packet, and in your packet you have a form that has multiple intelligences, and there's some examples. It'll say towards the end, the next to last page, and it says curriculum approaches to differentiating classroom. Then it says multiple intelligences, suggestions for centers and projects. All right? So you see this all the time. You probably don't always see what you can do with it. So if you're a verbal linguistic, this table I can't see very well. So what does your chart say you do for children who are verbal linguistic?
Prepare a report.
Okay, keep going.
Write a play or essay.
Mm-hmm.
Create a poem or recitation. Listen to an audio tape or an interview. Label a diagram. Give directions.
All right. So that explains verbal linguistics. Our activities need to focus on reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So now I want you to take it to another, you got the theoretical part of Gardner's multiple intelligences. Now you've got to apply this thing in the classroom. So the activities that you're doing need to include the things you see on the right side. If you have students who are very kinesthetic, what types of activities do you need to do with them?
Create a role play, construct a model or representation, develop a mime, create a tableau, manipulate materials, work through a stimulation, or create actions for it.
All right, any one of those things. What did I hear over here?
I was saying hands-on.
Hands-on. What does kinesthetic mean? Okay. Okay, but what else? What else? This is a key word for some of our children. We spend a lot of time in Title I schools.
Movement.
Movement. All right? What can we do with movement? What do they know? What do little kids do all day long? Do they stand still like this? No, they're doing this and they're doing. You got to use some of that energy. If they're doing this all the time, get up, move around. We got to figure out how to use this energy. That blood has to flow through the system. And once that blood flows, then they can come back and they can learn. But if you think they're going to sit still all that time, you've got another thing. Coming. So imagine we're in class, and I want you to take this and go over there. Just go to that side. Can you take this and go way over there, please? Can you take this and go way over there? Or maybe right here. This is my phone. And keep staying right there. All right. Now, I know you can't see very well, because I can't see it very well, of what their sheets say. So shout out what yours says.
Rarely ever.
Sometimes.
Often.
I have it.
All right. Now, imagine that we are teaching the 3 branches of government. Do y'all remember the 3 branches of government? You know what they are?
Yes.
You know them all?
Yes.
What are they?
And
Executive.
executive.
All right. So let's say, no, I think I'll use differentiated instruction. All right. So if you, I want you to think about where your learning is right now. We have 5, and we're on number 2, and number 2 is what? Number 1 was what? All right. So now I want you to go find where you think you are in differentiated instruction. If you think you have it, and I can go on home and eat my dinner and watch whatever comes on TV tonight, and I can go ahead and leave, then go over to that corner. I have it. Dr. Harrison, you can just go on home. I know differentiated instruction because you've only talked about 2 out of 5. I got this thing. So go over there to I have it. Got to turn your sheet around. All right, and often means, you know, I'm not quite there. I still need some help. Sometimes it's probably where a lot of people might end up. I've got this, but you need to keep on going. And here, I don't get what you're talking about. So get up and go to the corner of where your comfort zone is right now for differentiated instruction.
Oh.
All right, so, so what did you, Rashika, what did you figure out in my little assessment?
Just to see how far people are learning what you've been talking about.
So do I need to keep on going, or
Yes.
I can't go home and get my, I just need to keep going? All right, what did you all learn about yourselves over here? You have work to do, and I need to keep on going. I'm so glad nobody was in this group. And nobody came over here. So, as a teacher, could you do this in the middle of your class?
Yes.
Could you ask children to please be honest? Find things at first that aren't things that they may feel badly about. So, and then gradually move to the things that may be a little more, they may struggle a little bit more with, all right? And if you see that kids are getting tired in the middle of class, this is an assessment that we do during our instruction. And right in the middle, you've got to have, differentiating instruction requires assessment. Now, thinking of kinesthetic, what could I do right now as students are coming back to their seats? Kinesthetic, what could they do?
Run.
You want to run it in your class? What are some things they could do? You could skip and move your arms. What else could you do? You could clap.
Recite.
Recite. What else?
Sing.
Sing. Snap your fingers. Do all those things back to your seat.
Quiet.
Or be quiet. Let me see what you're working. Let me see what I'm working with.
Or you cannot do your
All right, you can't just regularly walk. You got to skip.
Oh, okay. I'll clap.
At least one little wiggle out. Or jump back or something. They could recite a poem if you had to. Yeah, that's Parlor's number. All right? So, multiple intelligence at its best. But you've got to apply it now. You're just not regurgitating this information. The theory is gone. You are in the schools over here. You've got to apply. Well, I shouldn't say the theory is gone. You know what I mean. You've got to apply this information. So, that's what the things that we need to do. The next one is assess students. So, under 3 is assess. So, if you write that down. There are 3 types of assessment that we really need to do when we're in a differentiating classroom. We need to pre-assess, we need to assess during a lesson, and we need to assess after a lesson. And so we've already looked at some things that we can do for pre-assessment by using what kind of cards are on the table?
Yes, no.
Yes, no. We're going to look at a couple of others. So when we pre-assess students, we want to find out what the student already knows about the unit, what standards, objectives, concepts, skills the student might already understand, what further instruction opportunities of mastery are needed, how to set up my flexible groups. All those things can tell me a little bit about pre-assessment. Now, I try to do what I'm getting ready to talk about, but that activity we just did is called squaring off. And in squaring off, rarely ever, sometimes often, or on habit. And this is a real successful pre-assessment. And on your table, there's some cards that should have the word pre-assessment, assessment during instruction, and assessment after instruction. But as teachers, what you want to do is come up with these things that you're going to do while you're teaching. Your pre-assessment, your assessment during instruction, and your assessment after instruction. But you have to think of these things in advance. You can't, while you're in the middle of teaching, you think, oh, let me see, what can I do? And all your children are out. And if you have it on cards already as to what you're going to do, and you might not need it for them, but your thought processes needs to be working at its best of what you're going to do. So we've already done squaring off. Could you do that in your classroom? Did you like that one?
Yes.
Okay. you've already seen the yes/no cards because I demonstrated that. And then another one that you can do that you are probably very familiar with is something like the KWL, but it's called graffiti board of facts. And you can actually have students come up and write down what it is they know, what they learned, and what they want to learn next. And I can have it posted on the board, and students can actually come up. So we might try to do that one a little bit later. And then you can kind of see how that works. Because once students start writing down everything they know, keep that in mind because you might be doing that in a little bit. Everything you know so far, it might give you an idea of, is it just surface information? Because with the Common Core, you have to have depth of knowledge now. It can't be surface information. So you've got to figure out, how am I going to help my students to get the depth of knowledge? And so you really are presenting a lot more information, but that's going to require more of you as a teacher to know more information. You're going to have to do some additional research. Another activity is called thumbing. So I can ask students, tell me a little bit about your knowledge base of differentiated instruction. So if you hold your thumb up, that would mean you know a lot about this. To the side, I know some, or I know very little. So imagine every time you're introducing a content, you could use that. So let's see what that looks like. Where are we with differentiated instruction? Here, or here. All right, very good. Do you feel like students could actually do that? And do you think they're looking to see what other people are doing?